everyone. Welcome to the House Calls. I'm Dr. Quack, and today I have a special guest for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring him on, the author of The Masked Saint, Dr. Chris Whaley.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, how we doing?
Man, if I was any better, I'd have to wipe some of it off.
Oh, man. Yeah, you are definitely doing great here. I can feel that. Dude, I'm loving that hat. That is nice. What do you got there?
Yeah, that's a Stetson, man. I'll tell you, that's a good one. Yeah.
That truly makes me feel like I'm back in Texas again.
Yeah, too many years in Texas. That's it.
Yep, and for you guys watching at home, if you got any questions or anything you want to ask, Dr. Whaley here, by all means, that would be a great thing to hear. I'm sure he would answer them. But I want to talk about the beginning. I want to talk where it started, because you were trained by somebody legendary. You were trained by the great Malenko.
Yeah.
What was that like? How did that go down? Like, tell me your story on that.
I was in the best shape of my life. I loved professional wrestling growing up, watching it as a kid. Really, never had any kind of idea that I could actually, get in the wrestling ring. And then, but I was going to the gym. I was in great shape. We moved back to Central Florida. My wife was a high school math teacher, and she was grading papers. And I just came home from work, and I picked up the Tampa Tribune, and I was reading it, and there was an ad that said wanted professional wrestlers, and I jumped up out of my seat and took it over to my wife. She was grading papers, and I said, look at this. And she looked up, and she looked at it, and she rolled her eyes and kept grading papers. And I said, I'm going. So I went in, and I packed a bag, and I drove over to Tampa and walked in, and there was the great Malenko. I watched him growing up as a kid, and of course he was, the biggest heel in the business at that time. But just a great guy, and I actually trained with his two boys, Jody and Dean. Worked against both of them. They were great guys. I still keep in touch with Jody. They have a Legends luncheon in Tampa every other month. B. Brian Blair is the guy that puts it on, and just a bunch of old wrestlers. Bugsy McGraw usually shows up. Jody's there. B. Brian Blair, Bob Cook. You remember Bob Cook?
Yes.
And there's a lot of guys. Sometimes Dan Spivey shows up. Tony Gurria shows up every now and then, and just some great names. And so I get to see Jody over there, but his dad was absolutely one of the greatest guys in the business. He was just a super guy. And when he trained you, man, he did a great job. You look at the guys that he trained Johnny B. Bad, Mark Mero. He trained, I think he trained Tugboat. He trained a lot of guys that went on and made it really big in the business. And he was just, super to be around. His knowledge of the business, unprecedented. You just couldn't find anybody that knew more about the business than him. And when you got there, you better be ready to work. And you better do the best that you can, because he wouldn't have had you come back if you weren't doing that. So, and it was just a real tragedy. I think he left us way too early with leukemia, but just a super guy.
How long was wrestling school for you? Like, before you had your first match?
I actually trained for about 6 months before I had my first match, which is, crazy. I've heard some crazy things today. A guy work for a couple of weeks and then get in the ring. I think it shows too.
It does
do that, but no. When I when I got in the ring, I was ready. I mean, nothing happened that I wasn't expecting, and I was prepared, and I didn't have any fear working against anybody after being trained by Larry, because he just did a great job of doing that.
And you went through your first match. You were known as the Masked Saint. You were under the hood.
Nope, that first year I didn't work with a hood.
No.
No, I was working. I worked as Chris Samuels. That's in my book, The Masked Saint. It's Chris Samuels because that was one of the names I worked under.
Okay.
But I worked as Chris Hawkins. I worked as Chris Whaley, and then I was looking for a church, and I got called to a church as a youth minister, which is what I felt called to do. And my wife was pregnant with our first child, and they don't pay youth ministers very much. And I went to the senior pastor and I said, I could wrestle a couple of nights a week and it would really help us financially. And he said, absolutely not. We're not going to turn this church into a circus. And so I said, okay. And then that Saturday I was watching wrestling on TV, and there's, some of my buddies working, and one guy was working with a hood, and then the light bulb went on. I said, that's what I can do. I came up with the gimmick of the Saint. I worked as the Saint, not as a Masked Saint, but I worked as the Saint. Got a white mask. I had white trunks, white tights, white boots, white cape. And I was the perennial good guy, the Saint. And so that after that, from then until the end of my career, I worked as the Saint.
How did the fans perceive your gimmick?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. It was kind of strange in those days. They didn't have the barricades up and all, so there were people sitting literally 5 feet from the ring in those days. And I'll never forget, I was working against some guy, and he had me in the corner just beating the crap out of me, and this woman came up and grabbed him and pulled him out of the ring. So I guess she felt sorry for me getting beat up like that. But the fans were very good. I mean, as long as you're giving them a good show and you're working good, and this was old school wrestling, and and it was just so different. You didn't have all those high spots and stuff that you have today, but it was just it was great. They cheered for you. Of course, your match is only going to be as good as the heel you're working against. If the heel is not good, it's not going to be a good match. But I worked against some great heels, so that was no problem. And I think people enjoyed watching me.
Oh yeah, I mean, you started, I believe, in '78, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, 78.
And you had about a 10-year career. Is that what I'm accurate on?
Yep, finished in 1988, and went to my first church in 1988. Yeah.
What would you say was your favorite match during that 10-year span?
I had some great ones. I got to work against the Freebirds, and I worked against the Ultimate Warrior. I worked against Iceman King Parsons. But I guess my favorite match of all was working against Mark Calloway. Of course, he wasn't the Undertaker then, but he was just a great guy to work with, man. He's 6'8", weighed about 315 pounds, and he was just in great shape. And I had a great match with him. We won about 20 minutes, and it was just it was one of those highlights, because I knew when I was working against, I knew that this kid's going to be a star. And for 3 decades he was a star. And my goodness, there's nobody else. What did he have? What kind of a record did he have in WrestleMania? Like 16-1 or something like that.
Yeah, it was 20-1 until that WrestleMania 30.
Yeah. So I mean, that's quite a thrill to have worked against some guy that ended up with that kind of a career.
Now, I've always heard good things about The Undertaker. Like, he would take care of you in the ring. He didn't take liberties. I'm kind of curious on the other side. The Ultimate Warrior, I've heard a lot of things that he was a little bit reckless and a little bit stiff. How accurate would you say that is?
That's very accurate. He was very stiff, and no, he didn't care about. From my perspective, he did, and God rest his soul. I know he's not here, but he he wasn't very concerned about the people he was working with, whether they looked good or not. He just wanted to do what he wanted to do, and didn't care what he did to you while he was doing it.
What was he nice backstage to you? What did he talk to you? Or
Oh yeah, yeah. After the match, he he hit me with a punch. It would just, it shook my kinfolks in China. And when we locked up against, I said, "Hey man, you're stiff with that punch," and he was I never did that crap, but anyway, he hit me again, and Malenko always said one time is a mistake, twice demands a response. And he said, I don't care who you're working against. If somebody takes advantage of you once and they do it again and you don't respond, they're not going to have any respect for you. So, I hit him as hard as I ever hit anybody and didn't even faze him. And, when I got back to the dressing room, I'm looking for something to hit him with because I knew he was going to come in and kill me. So I found something, and I've got it next to my chair. And when he walked in, he was like, he's looking, he found me, and he walked over, and I'm saying, oh crap, and he got right in front of me and went, got a little stiff with that punch, partner. Sorry about that. And I said, oh, no problem. No problem.
At least he apologized for it.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, those receipts are definitely interesting. So, I mean, you said you spent your last 3 years in Texas. Where did you work in Texas?
Well, WCCW was kind of winding down at that time. So I got to work with WCCW, worked just really, what a thrill to work at the Sportatorium there in Dallas. And then Ken Mantell started Wild West Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of merged a little bit together. And then there was the UWF had started up there. They didn't last very long, but UWF started up too. But I worked for Ken Mantell and Wild West Wrestling, and worked for WCCW. And then I worked a lot of independent shows too. So any time I could work, I would do it. So I loved Texas. Texas fans were, I don't know, they were just some of the best. They
were very loud and vocal.
very, very, very vocal. Yeah. It's kind of funny. When I first went to Texas, nobody knew who I was. And they needed somebody to work as a heel for a couple of nights. And I said, yeah, nobody knew me. So I would, work under a different hood. And I said, well, I need to make sure that I leave an impression. This was Tom Landry, who was the coach of the Cowboys. This was Tom Landry's last couple of years. And, Texas people, Cowboys, they're a holy grail, and they weren't doing too good. And that was very unusual because the Cowboys were usually great, America's team. So the first night I was in Dallas, I took the microphone and I said, well, would the lady with the 11 snot-nosed kids who dropped them off at Texas Stadium please go pick them up because they're beating the Cowboys 14-0. Yeah, it was a good thing I had some security to get me to the dressing room because they were throwing everything at the ring they could. And I definitely made an impression, though.
Yeah, definitely. So you went from wrestling and you became a pastor, right? Yeah. And explain to me, like, with the pastor part, because you went from pastor to make the movie to writing the book. How did you decide to write a book about the Masked Saint? How did that all come about?
Well, I graduated from seminary in May of 1988, and I went to my first church here in Central Florida. They teach you a lot of things in seminary. I mean, I got a master's of divinity. You know, I had 3 years of Greek, which the New Testament is written in Greek, 3 years of Hebrew, the Old Testament's written in Hebrew, church history, education. You know, it's a great degree, but they didn't teach you how to be a pastor. So I go to my first church, and I'm trying to, learn on the job. And I had this young lady that would drop her kids off at our children's program, and then she would come into the church. She was always the last one in, and she was always the first one out. And so I didn't get to know her very much. But then one Sunday she came in wearing sunglasses, which I thought was a little unusual. And I always stood at the front door and shook hands with people as they were leaving. And on this particular day, she was the last person to leave. And she came up to me and took my hand with both of her hands, and she had her head down, and I could see tears coming down underneath her glasses. And so I lifted up the sunglasses, and she had two black eyes. And it just infuriated me that someone would hit a woman. I mean, anybody that would hit a woman is a dirtbag.
Yeah.
So I asked her, I said, "Did your husband do this?" And she, crying, saying yes. And I said, "Oh, well, I'm going to go see him." And she was like, "Oh, no, he'll hurt you." And I said, "Well, I'm not worried about it." So I went to see him, and I just said, I just can't believe that you would hit the mother of your children. And he was a big guy. And I said, anybody that would hit a woman is a dirtbag. And I came here to see how you would do against somebody who was able to fight back. I said, because you're a bully, and bullies only pick on people they know they can defeat. So here I am. Let's see how you do. So we danced in his front yard, and it was awesome because, I didn't get to relieve my stress like I did when I was in wrestling. And so that was, the first thing that happened. And then I started having all of these episodes where I was handling people more as a professional wrestler than I was as a pastor. And that's where the Masked Saint came in. And after a couple of years, I was telling my wife, I said, this would make a great TV series. And so I really wanted to get someone to write. I didn't think that I had the ability to write. So for a long time, I was trying to find a ghostwriter, and there weren't a lot of them in those days.
Right.
And that didn't work out. And so finally one Saturday, the personal computers came out, and they have the word processor. So it was one Saturday, I just sitting at the computer, and I started typing. And I typed, like the first chapter. And I gave it to my wife. I said, what do you think? And she read it, and she said, "That's great. Keep going." So I just, kept going. And the reason it was so easy to write is because every chapter was built upon something that happened to me. And so,
how long did it take you to write it?
It took me about a year and a half. I didn't work. I would hit those dead spots. Mm-hmm. Where I'd say, well, where do I go from here? And, a month or two would go by, and then finally it would hit me. Oh, this, so I'd go back and I'd write. And so I finally, I finished it after about a year and a half. And then after I got it published, I got a call from a movie producer in Orlando. This guy, he was the executive producer of the first 3 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies, the ones that were blockbusters.
Oh, wow.
And then he did a movie with Jim Caviezel called The Bobby Jones Story, Stroke of Genius.
Okay.
and then he did a faith-based movie called Letters to God. So he was interested in doing another faith-based movie. And so he called me in. He actually kept me on the hook for about a year. And then one day he just says, "Nah, I'm not going to do it. I'm not interested." But during that year, I met all of these people in the movie business. And I met script writers. I mean, they already had a script written. And then this producer in Canada flew down here and met me at Disney World. And he talked to me about making the book into a movie. And then he changed his mind. And then it got a little annoying. And so I was just ready to put it up on the shelf. And my grandkids could pull it down one day and say, "Look what Papa wrote," you know. So I was on my way to the gym. It was a Tuesday morning. I was on my way to the gym, and my phone rang, and I answered, and it was a producer in Toronto, and he says, "Has anybody done anything with your book?" And I said, I was like this. I rolled my eyes. I went, "No." And he said, "Okay, I'll get back with you." And I said, "Okay, yeah, right," and hung up. And then the next week, actually, I was on my way to the gym again, and this guy called me, and I answered. He said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "Matter of fact, I am." I said, "I'm driving." And he said, "Well, how about pulling over?" So I pulled over, and he said, "I just want to tell you, we're going to make your book into a movie." And I was dumbfounded. He said, "We're working on the script. Hope to start filming in July." Well, they didn't finish the script until October, and they started filming the 1st of November in 2013. And they made it into a movie, and which was, unbelievable because, I'm looking on IMDb because they're building the cast, and one of the first names on there was Roddy Piper. And I was like stoked, man, this is awesome. Roddy Piper's going to play the promoter in the movie, man. That's awesome. And they had Diane Carroll, beautiful African-American lady. Academy Award nominated actress, I'm like, holy smokes, I'm going to walk in tall cotton here. And so they made the book into a movie. In 2015, it won Best Picture at the International Christian Film Festival, which was pretty amazing. And then the movie was released in 2016 in theaters, and then in 2019, it was 2016 to 2019, it was on Netflix, and now it's on Prime Video. So you can watch the movie if you've got Prime. And so, even though the movie was, came out in 2016, there is not a week that goes by that I don't get messages from somebody, about the movie or about the book. And it's just amazing this long. And The Masked Saint is still touching a lot of people.
Yeah, it's amazing that one idea can just grow into everything it did. Yeah. I mean, so did you get to go on set? Were you there while they were filming it all?
Oh, yeah. I was there from the first day of filming.
And you met with Roddy Piper. How did that exchange go?
Yeah, it was great. And I'd worked against Roddy 25 years before this. And I said, "I don't know if you remember me." And of course, he bull crap you, "Oh yeah, brother, I know you." He didn't know me. But no, he was just a super guy. I mean, he was not only a great wrestler, he was a great actor. His first movie has a cult following.
They Live. Oh yeah,
They Live. Yeah, that's a great movie. And if you look at his credits on IMDb, I mean, it's just amazing, everything that he was in, movies and TVs, just really, really. I was watching Walker, Texas Ranger the other day, and Roddy Piper was on Walker, Texas Ranger. So, he did a lot of stuff, man. He was great.
Oh, yeah. He's in a lot of my favorite movies there. Some of them there. with what was that one? Buy and Sell. That was a weird one there. It was a really B flick movie, but it had so many guys from that era, like Robert Carradine was in there and a few others. It was really just interesting flick. But yeah, I mean, you've also written some other books here. You've written Harold's Heavenly Christmas. Would you like to tell the audience about that?
Yeah, when you write a book and they make it into a movie, it kind of spoils you. And I thought, what could I write that would have a chance of being made into another movie? My wife and I, we love those stupid Hallmark Christmas movies. And they start showing those Christmas movies. Matter of fact, they started a couple weeks ago. And they're showing them 24/7 until the end of the first week of January. So, a good portion of October, all of November, all of December, and the first week of January, they show them 24/7. And then after that, every Friday night they show them. And so I had an idea for a great Christmas story. And actually, I have a great idea for a sequel because I've had a couple of people talk to me about making it one of those movie of the weeks, and right now there's so much crap going on in Hollywood with the writers and the actors and everything. So hopefully this coming year that'll happen because they just need those, So, but it's a great Christmas story. I love Christmas. It's a great Christmas story. And the second one that I'm going to write is going to have wrestling in it. This one doesn't have wrestling in it, but it is a great movie. If you liked It's a Wonderful Life, you'll love this book because Harold is the new Clarence.
Yeah, and you also come out with your new one, Mr. President.
Yep, the Mr. President is going to be released Black Friday, next Friday, a week from this Friday, and it's a story of two lives, how they parallel. One is a sleazy comedian who runs for president every 4 years, and he gets these celebrities to give him an autograph, but they're actually signing an agreement to be his vice presidential candidate. And so he gets the World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion to give him an autograph. And of course, he's signing an agreement to be his vice presidential candidate. And then there's a big scandal with the Republicans and a big scandal with the Democrats. The comedian wins the presidency, and he's making his acceptance speech, and he has a heart attack. And it makes the World Heavyweight Champion the president. And then he starts putting his wrestling buddies in his cabinet. And he turns Washington upside down. It's a political comedy, and it is so funny. I mean, it is a great, great story.
I will definitely have to go get that one. I want to do a couple quick hits for you before we end this, okay?
Yeah.
Got a few questions here. Just your thoughts on Vince McMahon leaving the wrestling world and now TKO buying it over.
Vince McMahon, whether you like him or you don't, he's probably one of the greatest marketers in the world. In my day, there were 26 territories all over the United States. And then Vince McMahon Sr. dies, Vince McMahon Jr. takes over the WWF. He signs an agreement with, NBC and USA Network, and he makes wrestling national. And then he is the very first person to do a pay-per-view, WrestleMania. And then, how many WrestleMania is $1 billion weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at what he did for wrestling. I mean, he put wrestling on the map. I mean, with Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Roddy Piper, Captain Lou Albano, Gorilla Monsoon, all those names, people just couldn't get enough of it. And then you look at the numbers on WrestleMania, it's just incredible. So nobody has affected the wrestling business like Vince McMahon. I mean, I'm not a big fan of his, but you got to give him his due, man. He's the guy that changed wrestling. Of course, I think he did a lot to hurt the business too, and I hate that. Of course, in my day, you protected the business. It was kayfabe. Vince McMahon is the one who blew the lid off. Well, actually, John Stossel, the guy with 2020, and Eddie Mansfield. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a person here, Eric Nelson, we both know, saying hello.
Hey, Eric. How you doing, buddy? Yeah, he's a great guy.
He is.
So anyway, they changed it from WWF to World Wrestling Entertainment, and they call it, sports entertainment. So I didn't like that part where they blew the lid off of the business. And but anyway, I don't know how they're doing this day and age. I don't know what their numbers are for their shows, but
yeah, you're not really watching the current product.
No. Well, last time I watched it, I was in a hospital room visiting Blackjack Mulligan, and Blackjack was just a great guy, and unbelievable name in the business. And I'm in the hospital room, and there were a couple of big guys in there, and he said, "These are my grandboys. They work for Vince." And it was, Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas. And I didn't know who they were. I don't watch WWE, but I watched it, the next night just to see those guys work. And so that was the last time, I watched it just to see them. And then sadly, Bray Wyatt passed away. That was very, very sad. But I don't watch. I watch a little AEW. Because, I really like Jeff Jarrett, and Jeff works for AEW. Dean Malenko works for them. And I think the world of Dean. Dustin Rhodes works for them. So I think they have a great, product, man. They got some great workers on there. And they evidently are doing good because they're still on the Wednesdays and Friday nights. They're on TNT.
Yeah.
And,
hey, I got a couple questions here for you. Any advice for anybody that wants to be a writer or a professional wrestler?
Advice for somebody that wants to be a writer
or a professional wrestler?
Yeah. Excuse me. I have the opportunity to speak in a lot of places, and I love doing that. A lot of churches have me come, and they show the movie, and then I speak. And people just have me come and speak, and then afterwards I sign books and sign pictures, and inevitably, I have someone come up and say, "Hey, I want to get into wrestling." And this is what I always tell them: you have a better chance of being abducted by a Lebanese terrorist on February the 30th than you do of making it big in wrestling. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
It is
in wrestling. And if you don't know somebody in the business, you're not gonna go very far. But of course, in my day, independents were really looked down on, and they called us outlaws and stuff. But my goodness, there are hundreds and hundreds of independent organizations today. And they've got great talent. Some of them suck and they're terrible, but there's a lot of them that have great talent and put on a good show. And so, if that's, you're not going to make a lot of money, but if that's, if you want to be a professional wrestler, you find the best trainer that you can possibly find, and just work.
Coffee stains. Yeah. See, he's written it down there. Coffee stains.
Yeah. But if if you're not in great shape, if you don't look good, if it's going to be very difficult and all. I've seen some guys 165 pounds working, and I shake my head. But God
Tell them
bless
to
you.
hit the gym, grab some beef.
Yeah, God bless you. So,
Mm.
as far as being a writer, man, with the invention of the personal computer, um, there are over 1 million novels written every year, but only less than 1% of them get published. So, if you got a great idea for a book, that's great. Write it, but getting it published is one of the most difficult things. I was turned down probably 40 times.
Wow.
It is one of the most difficult things to do is to find a publisher. But now it's changed because you can self-publish. You can publish it through Amazon. You can publish. There are so many self-publishers today, so you can get your book published. But getting it, getting the publicity, getting the marketing of that is very, very difficult today.
It is challenging.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a rib pulled on you, or have you ever pulled a rib on anybody?
Say it again.
A rib. Have you? What was the best rib you've seen in professional wrestling when we talk about ribbing?
The
prank.
I'm trying to think. Well, the best one I can't tell because it just, the guy is still living and
Right.
I couldn't do it, but that's the very best one. I mean, we go offline, I can tell you, but
Okay.
oh crap, I'm trying to think of here.
Did anybody ever pull a rib on you?
No, they tried, but no, there's a guy that I worked with a tag team in Texas, Solomon Grundy. Solomon Grundy, he was 465 pounds. He kind of had the Haystacks Calhoun gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
And we were traveling together. We were in Mississippi. We were working that night, I think, at the War Memorial Coliseum in Jackson, Mississippi. And we got there early. I told him, I said, man, we're getting there way early. We got there way early. But we went ahead and went in the Coliseum, and there's nobody there. I mean, they had some security people. So Grundy goes into the bathroom, and he, I got to take a crap,
Okay.
Out, So I waited and I waited. He didn't come out. And so finally I walked in. I said, Grundy, you okay? He said, I've been screaming for you, man. Didn't you hear me? And no, I didn't hear you. He said, there ain't no toilet paper in here.
Oh.
I looked in the next stall and there was no toilet paper there. And I went in the women's and there was no toilet paper there. I found a security guy. He said, yeah, they don't even put it out until right before the show. He said, I don't even know where it is. And so I went back and I told Grundy that, and he thought for a moment and he said, have you got change for a $10 bill?
Oh, no.
So, he wiped his butt with $1 bills, and that was the most expensive crap anybody's ever taken, I think.
That's definitely got to be up there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now I've told that on other podcasts, and he hasn't killed me yet. Of course, he still lives in Texas, but I don't know if that's a rib or not. But
that's a good one there, definitely. I'm sure somebody played that prank. Yeah. I got one final question for you. Kind of curious, what's your favorite Christmas movie?
My favorite?
Yeah.
My favorite is It's a Wonderful Life. I love that movie. Yeah.
The original.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Because when you get to the end of it, after he's gone through everything, and his brother toasting, he said, to my big brother George, the richest man in town, And anybody who has friends, anybody who's got a family and got friends is very rich. I've often said that if you took everything away from me and all I had was my wife of 49 years and my two daughters, if that's all I had, I'd still be a very rich man. So anybody that's got a family and got some friends that love them is very rich and very blessed. And I guess that's why that movie always touches me, because he didn't think he was making a difference at all, and then the angel showed him all the people the lives that he had touched. And so I always think about that, because there's a lot of times I get the mully grubs and I think, am I making a difference? And my wife is always telling me, look at this person, look at this person, look at this, what would this person done if you hadn't done this for him? So that's my favorite. You didn't ask me what's the worst match I ever had.
Yeah, go ahead. By all means.
Worst match I ever had was Bruiser Brody.
Ooh.
Bruiser Brody was the worst guy in the world to work on. When he kicked you in the head, he kicked you in the head. And he kicked me so hard. That was the last concussion that I had in the business. But I don't even know how I got home that night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when he kicked you, he kicked you. He's a big, big boy. Woo.
Lot of stiff guys back in those 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Some of them took liberties. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
But that's the end of our show here. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Dr. Chris Whaley. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on. My next guest will be on here on Friday, Miss Becky Pence. We'll be talking to her. She's a referee up in Ohio. We're going to talk about that side of the business. And for that, I'm Dr. Quack, and we'll see you next time.